because I am a man, and I feel that all the, how to say, dilemmas and morally and ethical questions that the main characters in these three films are dealing with, I can identify with, and I also can feel that I would have a problem to deal with them. And I think that I have been interested in like, there's a social contract of being a woman, and there's a social contract of being a man. And the cultural expectations of what a man should be and what he should do and so on. Very often I feel it ends up in a clash with what I want to do myself. My person, or my like primal needs, or my ways of being a human doesn't always fit in the civilization and the idea about who I should be in that culture contract. So, and I always get very interested in when I don't manage to live up to this idea. For an example, the idea about that I should be like the one that is paying for the woman as soon as we go and have dinner. At the same time, there's people are saying me that we should be equal. And then there becomes like a conflict for me, like, okay, because I believe in certain values, and then at the same time that I can understand, and I want to impress a woman. So in order to catch her, I have to impress her first. But then all of a sudden I'm trapped in playing this role. Dimitri is the character in the film that had the most understanding about himself and the context of the situation that he's dealing with. He's much more frank about, okay, I made money on like the collapse of the Soviet Union and so on. Then maybe also Abigail have it in some way. It's also like this. I wouldn't say that they are unaware of their behavior, but they don't want to reveal that they are aware of their behavior, because all of them are actually speculating with their possibilities and what their currencies are in the different situation. I mean, for example, Gaia is in the first part very open about, look, I'm a model, and the only way to get out of this life is to become a trophy wife. And then on the island, all of a sudden, she gets detached to Carl in a way that she needs him, and she can't talk in the way that she did in the first part. And Carl, that is talking about love in the first part, all of a sudden he is almost behaving like Yaya is doing in the first part, in the third part. Then he is the one that is becoming a trophy wife. So I don't approach the film by writing the characters like that someone is more or less aware of their behavior, or less or more speculative. All of them are basically trying to navigate through life, and doing it by using the materialistic setup that is in the three different parts. I think that, is it Bourdieu that have written the most interesting things about like the currency of culture status, and how we position ourselves with like trying to point out with who we are in these hierarchies. And I mean, I think that for me, I have been dealing with, as a man, I have been dealing with like the currency of being intellectual, or being considered someone that have prestige. I have not so often been dealing with the currency in the beauty and the sexuality. And I think it's interesting to see what happens if you turn the hierarchies and you have a man dealing with beauty and sexuality as a currency. Because during the Me Too movement, when we were discussing how men were abusing the power and women were then abused, I thought it was also a part of the discussion that was like that, lacking, that this comes from an unequal setup, and it comes also from the fact that beauty and sexuality is a currency. And I mean, women are not unaware of this. There's a way of using it. It's a way of playing on the arena, and it's a way of maybe there's misunderstandings when it comes to how is this contract written sometimes. And I thought that therefore it was interesting to go into the thematic of beauty and sexuality as a currency, but just letting a man deal with it instead. In the film, it should be chaos when it's happening, or it should go from at least a fine dining captain's dinner when people are trying to, behave regarding or follow the social contract of a fine dining culture. And then they should be in the conflict of seasickness. So at the same time, you want to eat in a proper way, or when you hear someone vomiting in that dining room, what I love is the clash. What do you do? And then the scene should go into just, how to say, pushing the vomiting 10 steps further than the audience can expect. Because I felt if I'm going into this vomiting scene, then I don't want to do it just a little bit, because then it becomes nothing. And if you do it a little bit more, then it becomes like childish almost. But if you go further than the audience expect, then suddenly it starts to be something else. Then it starts to be like, I don't know, a metaphor or So when I started the scene, I had the bar set up quite high that I really had to go further than the audience expect me to go. And we shot the scene on a gimbal, on a rocking gimbal. So we were in a studio set where we could rock. And we spent maybe 3 weeks or something on this rocking gimbal. So 8 hours a day on a gimbal that was rocking way much more than a ship actually is rocking when it's out on the ocean. So the crew got seasick of shooting it. Some of the crew had to eat seasick pill, and the actors had to eat seasick pill. And I'm a very controlled director. I like to, okay, bum, here's the frame. Now let's work with it. Silence, silence, silence. For me, it was very, very hard to shoot on this rocking gimbal and not being 100% in control. And I got a material to the editing table that was very fragmented. It was like a lot of different shots that I hadn't 100% decided where it should be placed in the chronology. So I have actually pushed all the decisions to the editing table when I was shooting the film. It took, I mean, I was working on it in the end also, but I think I concentrated, worked on the segment of the storm for 6 months. There's a great knowledge that Marx brought to us. That was sociology. We dare to look at human being when we fail, but we pay attention to the setup of the situation that makes us fail. So if you, for example, look at the milligram experiment where there was a test person giving electrical shock to another test person, we don't blame the guy that is giving the shocks, electric shocks. We understand, he's doing it because of the setup of the situation. We have a doctor in a white coat, and we understand the hierarchies, how they are influencing us and so on. In our time, I believe we live in a certain kind of narrative about the world where we are completely obsessed with the individual. We're trying to find the answers in individuals. We are trying to find the bad guy. We're trying to find the good guy. This is a very neoliberalistic way of looking at human being. And I think we have to remind ourselves that the context have a huge influence on why we do as we do. So I would love if the audience bring with them from this film that it is the context that it is actually is like changing our behavior and making us act in different ways. And when we get an understanding for that, we will stop this kind of like absurd, let's say, way of looking for answers in bad or good behavior from individual cases.
What are you all worked up about?